Mother, there's too many of you crying. Brother, there's too many of you dying.
A lot to get to on today's edition of the Bumper to Bumper program. On a rather murky Halloween's Eve here in the Twin Cities of Minneapolis and St. Paul. Before we're done today, Glenn Mason will join in studio in the 4 o'clock hour. Pat Kessler will join in studio probably about 5:30 or so. And we are, he's already on hold, right on time. Mike Conley, Timberwolves point guard, kind enough to join us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline, fresh off the Wolves, 6-point loss last night? Was it 120 to 114? I think that was the final score. Dallas Mavericks, the opponent. Mr. Conley joining us via the Connecticut Water Systems hotline. Welcome back to the program. It's funny how I think it speaks to the place that this team and this franchise has ascended, because after a game like that, everybody's breaking it down and everybody's trying to figure out, okay, here's the most important thing that went wrong, and here's the second most important thing, and everybody's debating what it is. You're a starting point guard on this team. So from your perspective, from your vantage point, was the biggest issue last night on the offensive side, the defensive side? Rebounding, I think most people think of as part of defense, but where does it start for you?
I honestly believe it had to do with the rebounding side. They were, making a conscious effort of crashing the glass, especially on, long shots, which would create long misses, and they were able to get second chance opportunities, which really, I think, hurt us, down the latter part of the game. Outside of that, I thought that we had some, issues with like unforced errors, unforced turnovers, and transition defense a couple of times where there were some lapses where guys were getting, over the top passes for layups and, walk-in threes for guys like Kyrie or Luka, who you don't want to get going off the easy baskets. So, I think those were the lapses that we had last night, and they took advantage of it. Yeah,
I think you alluded to that last night, the turnovers. In fact, I think you went back to even the playoff series last year, that was something that hurt you guys. And I get it. The rebounding, the offensive rebounding was frustrating. It was maddening because they kept getting you guys would have good defensive sequences, and then they would just grab, as you say, crash the boards and grab the rebound and give themselves a second, and sometimes in some cases even a third chance. But the unforced errors, the turnovers are the things that drive me the craziest, because I think you guys shot 50%, which would seem to indicate that the offense was working pretty well last night, most of the night. And so you're back to, you want to prize every one of those possessions, especially on a night when your offense is going good.
Yeah, especially, and I think, I can't remember the exact number, but our coaches told us there was, you say it's like 14 extra possessions that they were getting, as opposed to us, just from our, lack thereof of focus on, passing or, taking care of the ball in important times. Like that stuff, you look over a full game, can make or break a game, especially against the very, very good teams in our league. We might be able to get away with it against, in certain nights, but when you're playing like the Mavs and Denver and guys like that, you have to win those battles. You can't be a disparity of the team getting, double-digit more opportunities than you do, especially when our offense, seemingly, if we don't turn it over, we're making the right plays and scoring the basketball.
You guys, in fact, cut it to 3, I think, at about the 4-minute mark, and then down the stretch, 1 for 4 from the field, 2 turnovers, and 3 offensive rebounds. I think that was the last 3 minutes, which, so you could say, so it ends up, as always, being kind of a combination of things that work against you. And look, we're very early in the season. We all know this is because of the changes you guys made at key positions. There is going to be a period of sort of feeling this thing out, both offensively and defensively. But I can't help but listen to your cautionary warning that once you get way ahead back again to the postseason, and you are playing teams like the Dallas Mavericks, really good teams, it's the sort of thing that you got to figure out, right? Especially when it comes to unforced errors. We're not even talking in some cases about great defensive stands or plays. It's just kind of being careless with the ball.
Yeah, and I think it's that focusing on the little things. We talk about the little things a lot with our team, just because those are the things that when we look back against games that are 1 or 2 possession games, 3 possession games, we'll look back at 20 possessions where if we didn't dribble it off our foot or make an errant pass, or we're lazy with the ball, or didn't box our man out or get back on defense, like all the things that require you to just finish out a play to move on to the next one. We could come out with these wins and we could change. The narrative would be changed. So that's going to be big for us going forward. Obviously, as we transition with all of our new guys and everybody's new roles and minutes and different things that guys, we're trying to get a lot of guys in and out of the lineups, and kind of tinkering with lineups, trying to feel who fits better with, different guys. And it's going to take time, but the things that I just talked about are things that I think we can control regardless of the time, we've had together.
You guys have taken a lot of three-point shots. There's this sort of fine line, I think, when it comes to three-pointers. It's a league that's dominated by it. All the analytics folks say that, most teams should probably take more three-pointers than they tend to. You guys were a very good three-point shooting team last year, but didn't really take as many as you're taking. From the outside, it appears there's an emphasis to say we want this to be more a part of our game. How much is that the case? And again, as a veteran guy who's been around this team, knows this team well, knows the league well, is there a balancing act here? Is there any fear that you can, that there's a tipping point where you end up maybe, jacking up a few too many threes?
Well, yeah, I think, the analytics has their place. It has a spot in our game where, it becomes a trendy thing, and teams want to get more possessions. You want to get, the three-pointer over the two-pointer, and, I get all that. And I think for us, whether we shoot more threes or not, it all comes down to us being efficient with it. I think if we're able to make our shots when we get them, I don't necessarily need to see 50-some threes shot by our team, but we do have more volume shooters on our team. Now I think Dante's another guy who gets a lot of them up, and Ants, is more accustomed to shooting, catch and shoot threes now, so he's added that to his game. So we've got guys who can shoot it well at a high clip with high volume. So I think once guys, catch their rhythm, guys start making shots, it'll be a little bit better. But I don't think we'll get, a team that falls in love with it so much to where you won't see, Ant creating in the paint, or, Julius posting up and getting to the bread and potatoes in the, in the paint and making, guys foul you and finishing games that way.
Wolves point guard Mike Conley, kind enough to join us at the start of the show today in the wake of the Wolves' loss last night. Very entertaining game, but ultimately, of course, a disappointing finish for the Wolves. You've been around Julius Randle, for a little while now. I'm intrigued by what I see, the flashes of what I see, of what I think he can bring, certainly offensively, to what you guys are doing that is different, perhaps, than we have seen before. How does his presence, what does he offer offensively, then again, as the point guard, changes, you think, the way you go about your job and getting the most out of what he has to offer?
He's unique. I think the thing that stuck out for me is his ability to be such a playmaker. When he gets the ball in transition or gets a rebound, he pushes to break the paint, to find guys in the corners, even in double teams. He's looking to make plays. He's just he's a tool in that aspect of it that I think that we're going to start to get accustomed to. And get used to that. As a point guard, it's, you always want to try to have the ball in your hand, but when you got a guy like that, you kind of just got to let him have it and figure out how to play off, off of him, which we're constantly going over every day, all the ways we can use his skill set to better all of us on the court, because he can do so much, and if he's making his shots from the outside, it even creates even more of a problem for teams. So really excited about all the possibilities that he brings, his demeanor, and like I said, his pass first mentality, his ability to create for other guys. So it's not just Anthony out there trying to create. It's you got him and all his gravity as well. It's really it's going to be really fun to be a part of.
Do you buy the notion also that both he and Dante, to a degree, they play obviously different positions, that especially Randall brings a little bit more physicality to what you guys do, certainly offensively, because I think you were a good offensive team last year. Probably not as good as you wanted it to be, but you could say it's a finesse team largely. And you think he adds a little bit more of that? Okay, if I have to, I'll go hard at somebody, break somebody down, and I'm not going to back away physically.
Yeah, I think that's been his MO since he's been in the league is his demeanor, his physicality, the way that he plays downhill. All those things adds to who we want to be offensively, and it puts a lot of pressure on teams when you got a guy like that who's willing to bang in the paint and crash on the offensive glass and kind of beat you up and just be physically imposing on that end, and kind of has a mean streak in that aspect. So I think it's really good balance for our team. It's really good for Ant. It's really good for Rudy, myself, Jaden, to have a guy with a similar mindset as Ant out there that's all about trying to kill the next possession. So I think that really helps a lot.
I mentioned earlier that you guys got back in the game fairly late, going pretty small. In fact, I think Randall for a while was playing at the 5 technically. You were not in that group. So are you okay with that? Is this a season where you say, all right, I am the senior guy, I am the steadying hand, but there are going to be games depending on who's doing what and how it's going, that I'm not going to be bothered or offended if I'm not, when the rest of the starting group is brought back, I'm not necessarily brought back? How do you handle that, and how do you and the head coach communicate on something like that?
Yeah, I understand. I understand completely. We've had conversations about this. I mean, not just between me and coach, but as a team. It was one of our first meetings was about, we've got a lot of guys in this, on this team that can finish games for us. Who starts the game might not finish it. It might be me one game that's not finishing. It might be Rudy. It could be Jaden not in there. You never know who's not going to be, in the game. So don't take it personally. We're, for last night's game, I wouldn't have took Nikhil out at any moment during that game the way that he was playing. And at that point it becomes, what can I do to prepare them for the next, the next few situations? Like, what plays can I give them? Try to, be as present and as vocal as possible to try to win this game, regardless if I'm out there or not.
You started, I think you've been asked about this already, as the first couple of games seem like you're off to kind of a slow start shooting. Again, it's very early. And I think somebody brought up your wrist. Refresh my memory on what the deal is, what this wrist thing is. If it's something, I sense it's something old, but maybe something that you do have to manage and that is chronic and comes up every once in a while. And I think you mentioned eventually you're going to have to perhaps do something with it, have some kind of procedure. Is it entering into things early in this season in a way that's bugging you a little bit, or what can you tell us?
Yeah, it's the off season was a funky one for me, just trying to, wasn't able to do a lot on it, trying to get it, mend it back to where, I can get on the court and do things. So, been trying to manage it for a while this summer and going into training camp preseason, and it's been doing great. Honestly, it really has been getting better. It's about getting, the reps again and flexibility and strengthening it and all those things. And like I said, I don't blame it for slow start shooting or anything, because I still should make shots regardless. I think I've played with it, long enough that, there's spells where, it bothers you, but there's, still make the shots. It's still out there for a reason. So, not too much worried about it. I think it'll be, off and on if it does. And sometimes, you just gotta figure it out, figure out other things that can work for you. So for the time being, I'm going to just keep shooting it. I feel like I'm one of the better shooters in the league, and won't lose my confidence in that.
Defensively, the stats early, and again, it's very early to draw too many grand conclusions, but the whole goal was to improve the offense, which I think, and again, in terms of efficiency, it has to a certain degree, but the defense is no longer in the top 10 for whatever that's worth this early. So are we back to some of that is you got in the rotation now, you got 2 new people, and that part of this is the process of figuring out who's going to do what. I think Finchie talked last night after the game that he thought there was too much concern of, matching up with your guy as opposed to match up with whoever's back there, man, and we'll worry later about talking about switching. What do you see defensively at this point that does not quite match what you guys was kind of your calling card last year?
Well, honestly, I think that it is that familiarity with our concepts, with the new faces on our team, along with, like we talked about earlier. I think you give up multiple offensive rebounds and give people 2-3 chances of scoring.
Yeah.
It's not gonna show well on your defensive stats at the end of the game. Like, we're stopping people, we're not finishing possessions, and that's a big problem, or a bigger problem than us actually guarding. I think guys are guarding. We're working hard. We're making it tough on guys, but if we can't finish possessions, our ratings won't be the same as they were last year. And if we want it to be like we were last year, we're going to have to start doing those things. We have to get back on defense, not give up layups, and, force guys to have to compete against our team on the half court, where I think we're really, really, really good and really hard to score on. So, I think that's just it. I can't blame on it, guys being new or anything like that. I think it's just that we have to learn how to finish these possessions early in the year, and once we start doing that, I think it'll start to turn around.
Last item, I noticed this, I think maybe more in the Toronto game, but I feel like there is an emphasis on trying to get your own fast break going on occasion, getting a little ahead of the defense, getting some cheaper points, which you guys have generally not been the kind of team to do that. How much of an emphasis has there been on that? How do you feel about your progress? How important do you think that is?
Well, I think it's really important in today's game, especially. Teams want to run, make the game faster, more possessions. But if we can get easier opportunities just by sprinting, just by running to space, just by giving ourselves, those opportunities, I think it just, it gets everybody in a better rhythm. It can get Jaden a couple easy layups and a couple easy buckets where he's not having to work so hard. Rudy some easy ones. It's just a lot more easier ways to score than having to rely on, making the right play on a half-court offensive set multiple times in a possession just to score. So hopefully, we'll continue to work on it. We'll continue to push. We'll continue to work on conditioning to try to get ourselves to be able to run, not only, back on defense, but to run, at teams and attack the same way. So I think it's something that we'll continue to try to get better at.
Mike, thanks for the time. I know you got an appointment to get to. We'll let you go at this point, and we'll chat in a couple of weeks. Thanks as always.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. That's Mike Conley, the Timberwolves point guard, fresh off a very disappointing, I think, 120-114 loss to the Mavericks. It's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the season by any stretch. But there's a lot to, I think, draw upon from our conversation with Conley and to get into some other areas, too. I will mention this. I don't know if this will buy him off. Probably not. But if it matters to KFAN, my intent today, if we did not, because of scheduling issues, have to start the show with Mike Conley.
Excuse me?
Was to start the show with welcome back to the state of hockey.
We're back?
Well, the Minnesota Wild deserve their flowers right now.
No pun intended.
Crowning them. Yeah, no pun intended. I'm not crowning them yet. They haven't done anything yet, but they can't do anything in the postseason, the fan has learned, in late October or November. What they can do, though, is show some signs, some measurable signs of progress, which they have shown on this road trip, which is now in the rearview mirror, right? It's over?
Yes, we come back home Friday night, I believe.
I think then I don't even think we're home that long after that. But the fact is, what was that? We were 5-1-1 on this 7-game trip.
Pretty good.
We crown it in Pittsburgh. Could it have, I mean, for the storybooks, could it have gone any better? Flower comes back home. He helps us get a victory. He gets all the salutes, the whole bit.
Standing ovations. He's blubbering by the end of it.
And we come from behind, right, to get the victory.
They're down 2-0 pretty quickly.
That's right. And we end up coming back, what was the final, 5-3? And
yes.
We get, I mean, you have to say that your guy, for the moment, as superstars go, the top producing superstar in this town right now is Kirill Kaprizov.
He's box office.
For this short period.
Yep.
5 goals, 13 assists. I can do that math. 18 points in 9 games this season. That's the kind of start he's off to. Last night, 2 more assists, setting up beautifully other goals that were important. And then I think his goal was the empty netter.
It was.
That made it 5-3. He is playing like a top 5 National Hockey League forward at this point, is he not? That's what we've all kind of been waiting for. That's what we need. Now, can he sustain this kind of point pace? I have no idea. Probably unlikely. But what's interesting, and a couple people have written about it, including, I think, our guy Russo, is that we all always knew he could score, but he's been especially effective as a playmaker this year, right? And what do the best players do in hockey? Let's be honest. The best players do both. The best players score, and they also set up other people because they draw so much attention. So in this early part of the season, I think it's fair to say there's more to feel unsettled about regarding the Timberwolves than the Minnesota Wild. I will caution you again, tomorrow is Halloween, so it's a long way between now and the spring, where winter sports teams really make their name. That's when it matters. That's when they ultimately will be remembered by what they do once the postseason begins. And your favorite National Hockey League team has not done anything in the postseason of any memorable note in a long time. Bill Guerin is going to join us tomorrow, is it?
Tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
Tomorrow at 5 o'clock.
So we'll start the top 5 at 5, Kevin.
Well, that's even better.
With Bill Guerin, and he'll carry it the entire way. Nothing wrong with that.
I haven't heard from him yet, but I doubt it.
The pass Kaprizov had, I think it was to Zuccarello. He's had a couple of those this year.
He has.
Where it's Ricky Rubio-like, where it doesn't even look like he's looking, and he just fires it, and all Zuccarello has to do is put a stick there, and it's a goal. And no one even knows what happened. It happened so quickly.
Well, wasn't it Kaprizov who said, you score a goal, you make one person happy. You pass for somebody else to score a goal, 2 people are happy. Isn't that too?
I think that's at his locker. I think there's a sign at his locker that says that.
I think he said it before Rubio did, and then Rubio turned it into a basketball truism. So I don't know. So the good news is, like I said, one of our winter pro sports teams, I think, has reason to feel very encouraged. That's as far as I'm going to go. I'm not crowning him yet. Nothing has happened yet, but we do know this. If it had gone the other way on this road trip, we would have been very much in here we go again territory. And that's what they flipped the switch on, especially, as I said, through much of this road trip, being a lot more disciplined about penalties. They continue to get a very good goaltending. And now, didn't we get who came? We still got, is Hartman still out?
I don't even know.
I want to say he is. But we got Spurgeon back, right? And by all accounts, he was back last night, and I don't believe there was any sign that he had any setbacks. In other words, that he handled the load fine, no difficulties there, because that was the other thing. Well, here we go again with injuries, and Spurgeon's so important to what we do. The assumption almost was, well, we're going to be lucky to not bleed heavily on this road trip, right? And they've done nothing. They did nothing of the sort through the trip. So there'll be, like I said, a decent amount of, in fact, I think the best way for us to proceed, and you can email us via text us via the Bradshaw and Bryant KFAN text line at 64686, is to stay with the winter sports teams, maybe all the way until Mace is here at 4:02. He's going to join us in studio at 4:02 and mix and match. I think we're capable of alternating and kind of going back and forth between the two, because I know I certainly have some thoughts about the Wolves as well and what took place last night, some things that are bugging me. I think there's some things bugging Gaardsy as well in that front. And then we can get maybe from the hockey community more response to the encouraging early part, the encouraging start for your favorite hockey team in the state of hockey. So that's the plan. Hit the text line, and we'll try to drill a little deeper on both of these outcomes last night.
Fan and 2 men and a junk truck. Want to give you a shot to put a grain in your hand with our National Cash Contest. First keyword on this Wednesday is cash. Go to KFAN.com and enter the keyword cash.
Oh, and I should mention, for some reason, last night I had Steve Bartman on my mind. We might get to that story as well. We got some great listeners in the Bumper to Bumper stable. For some reason, they continue to be loyal to a station that has been built on nothing but bits, very little substance, and yet they keep coming back. And every once in a while, Gaardsy, they offer an observation that I think is worthy of our consideration. Let me give you this example. This comes from tweeter Flim Flam.
Okay.
Flim Flam.
That name was available, huh?
And then it's like at Walla Bing Bong. Walla Bing Bong.
Okay.
Walla Bing Bong. There was a song that is kind of used that. It goes way, way back. Here's what he writes to me. I assume he, maybe she. This is appended to a Kevin O'Connor NBA tweet. O'Connor writes, Anthony Edwards has attempted 90 total shots, with 53 of them coming behind the arc. That's a 3-point rate of 58.9%, higher than James Harden ever had. To which Flim Flam writes to me, live by the dong, die by the dong. Good callback. This town has a real problem with the long ball. Slinging KOC, obsessed with explosives. Twins are all launch angle and exit velo. Ant thinks he's Dante DiVincenzo. Run the ball, get on base, attack the rim, cuteness, overdose. Now, there's a million subjects to get into regarding the Wolves' loss last night. This is only one of them, but I don't think it's a bad place to start. And we alluded to this some with Conley, and you can tell, I think Conley's like, yeah, we got to have, I get it, a lot of threes, but there's probably limits to how far we should go with that. I think the Edwards number is not sustainable. I know it's easier said than done, because there wasn't like he never drove to the basket, got to the free throw line. He had some nice drives. They're hard. They take a toll on your body, right?
Yeah. He lost it a couple of times driving in the second half.
But he took, for me, again, way too many wild shots. And he's connected to the other issue, which is at the top of my list. It's not offensive rebounding, which matters. It's not, more connective defense or connected defense and getting back, even though that matters. It's the bleeping, unforced turnovers. Conley alluded to it without getting into specific about any one player. Edwards had 2 down. I think he had 5 for the game. He had 2 down the stretch at a point where the Wolves had made it a ball game again. Conley talked about last night, the Wolves lost that series to Dallas early. They had leads in, was it both of the first 2 games?
Yes.
Not like commanding, but they were in position at home.
Right.
To take care of business. And part of the reason they didn't, it wasn't just because Dallas does have 2 absurd shot makers. That's a lot of it. That's not all of it. It's too many wasted possessions, either by taking bad shots or turning the ball over. And that's the one that I can't get past. Because to me, this is the most, to quote Christian Ponder, the most correctable. I don't think these turnovers are great pressure defense most of the time.
Not all of them.
They're careless. They're just dribbling the ball out of bounds, not being careful enough with the ball. And I don't want to hear, in fact, the more you tell me, well, this offense looks fine. I mean, they shot 50% yesterday. It looks like they have a chance for it to come together. Well, all the more reason to not want to waste scoring opportunities if your offense is at a high level. And that's, again, what we saw too much last night. There's a casualness to our unforced errors that drive me insane. And I think of all the things that need to be improved upon, this one still bugs me the most because it is the most just about concentration, discipline, might even be about a head coach holding individual players accountable on it a little bit more, and maybe even making changes on that basis. I don't know. All those things kind of concern me. But to Flim Flam, the texter, yeah, we might have a little bit of an obsession, too much of an obsession with the long ball in this town. There might be some truth to that.
Yeah, the three-point shooting has been just wild to watch because I'm old enough to remember the Tibbs era here when we never shot threes, and that was one of the reasons why they lost. It's just funny to watch a Wolves team just gun it. And they've had stretches where it's looked really good. The other night against Sacramento, obviously, like Dante had one, I think Jaden had one, then Naz had one. It gets them back into the game, and as we talked about a couple of days ago, I don't mind a high volume of threes as long as they're good shots.
Good shots.
As long as the ball's moved or...
And a lot of these were not, I don't think.
Some of them definitely weren't. And you're always going to have to live with some heat check ones, and I'm kind of fine with that.
Yeah, but he was wonderful the first quarter, but that was it, to be honest, right?
He didn't score in the second quarter when Dallas got themselves back in the game. And that's the problem. That's why these Dallas games have been so frustrating because even game one of the Western Conference Finals, I mean, we can mention like a million of them, but game one of the Western Conference Finals, they're basically up 4 to 6 points the whole game, and they just couldn't deliver the knockout punch, whether it was an offensive rebound or a turnover or another lob dunk. And if you let Kyrie and Luka hang around long enough, they're going to do what they eventually do, and that's absolutely kill you. And I looked at Irving, 39 minutes, 1 turnover. Luka had 3, he's dealing with the calf.
Yeah. And these are people who have the ball in their hands
constantly,
a lot, right?
Constantly.
And look, there's games where great scorers like Anthony Edwards might have committed 5 turnovers. It's not illegal, but
can't have Naz ripping 5 either.
No,
it drives me crazy.
It's especially when you go, well, how did he lose? When you have to look up and say, how did he lose the ball? What exactly did he do to lose the ball? Does Mason realize that we do a show even when he's not on it?
Well, I think I was so unflappable. I'm like a quarterback in the pocket, under duress.
His ego is such that he assumes everything's got to stop just because you're going to get your time. You're going to get 4 to 5. You can stay if you want after 5. I know you're lonely. I know you miss us. And I know you feel guilty about the degree to which you've disparaged the Indiana University football program and mocked and ridiculed what the new coach Signetti has done there.
I think he's sitting down now.
Yeah, I think I did.
You shamed him like
I humbled him? Yeah, I might have.
Yeah.
Anyway, you were saying?
I don't remember what I was saying. I said what I wanted to say.
Yeah, I think you probably did. I think we probably both did.
You can't let them hang around. And what's frustrating is it doesn't seem to be anything that isn't preventable or correctable. And but it also is inevitable that they can't stop Kyrie for a stretch. Then they do, and guess what? They get an offensive rebound. I don't think they scored on that possession, but it still bugged me.
Yep.
And it just continues. You've got guys, and Finchy talked about it, just not hitting early enough, not boxing out early enough, not being in the right position, and then the sloppiness with the ball. You just can't beat a good team like that who has absolute killers. Luka's on one leg. He's warming up at halftime like he's not going to play. And then he kind of
hits from half court late.
Yeah, and by the way, he actually missed the ISO on Rudy from almost the same spot earlier.
Yeah.
And then he hit
Rudy
one from
did a nice
50.
job.
But by then, I know that's the dagger, and he can look at the crowd, and he can yell at Charlie Swanson in the Craig Kilborn Lexus of Wyzetta seats and swear at him. But to me, the game was pretty much over. I wasn't feeling good about that game anyway because of how the whole thing kind of transpired. But you let those guys hang around, and missing back cuts if you're Ant, missing rebounds if you're Ant. There's just so many little things that they cost them in the Western Conference Finals, and you got to start fixing that
Learning
stuff
the
now.
lessons. Yes,
in the regular season,
brick by brick.
Inch by inch.
No pun intended. You do the math on this. Neither one of us is good at math, but I'm going to ask you something.
Okay.
If you're playing a good team, okay, you're hosting a good team that does have two incredibly streaky, but when they're on, ridiculously effective scores late in the game, right? Where you don't even have to, Jason Kidd doesn't even have to run anything.
No.
And they're going to figure out a way to make themselves open, get themselves open for a legitimate shot. If you have that, what chances do you think you really have over a single game or a best-of-7 series if, along the way, you've also given them, as Mike Conley pointed out to us, 14 extra possessions?
Yeah.
I mean, just do the math on that.
Right.
14 extra possessions against not a terrible team, a team that's as good as you are in many ways and maybe better in certain ways, having those closers. From the start, you have no chance. That's why the Finchie's got to become a Jackassian on this subject, I think, with his players. I really do.
I rewinded to opening night. They gave the Lakers, I think, even more extra possessions.
It's maddening.
Just with careless turnovers, sloppy ball handling, and it's the extra possessions and it's the easy transition defense where, I mean, the Lakers just went up and down the court on it a couple of times. They played pretty well.
Dallas early.
Yeah, and they hung around despite all of that.
Yeah.
But if you just do the math in your own head, if we clean all of that up, because there's some possessions where the ball's moving beautifully. It's popping around. Randall looks like he can be promising offensively. They've got enough shooting, I think. They certainly have guys that are willing. But the Laker game felt a lot like last night where you can't beat any decent NBA team if you're giving them double-digit more extra possessions.
No, and I did think Dante, he didn't shoot very well last night. I thought he got lost a little bit. I should have asked. That's the other question I had for Conley about what's the key to getting him going. I still love him, the acquisition. I think he's going to be a very important part of what this team does. But I don't feel like I think there's times where his number should be called a little bit more. And look, we have a big part of our offense is Edwards comes down and just jacks it. And again, he makes a lot of those shots. But early, I'm not in a season. I'm not quite sure that's the best way to figure this thing out offensively. And I am intrigued by what I think Randall represents. I think you saw the whole package with him. He can score, but he can be a good playmaker, and you saw that several times too. Now, is he hurting them defensively? Is it the combination of people you're putting out there defensively? All those things might matter. I
don't love him switching on to Luka and or LeBron, which they've done a couple of times. Yeah. Like, there's got to be a better way because they were clearly hunting those matchups in both games.
Texter introduces the other subject I want to get it into before 4 o'clock. Last night was Steve Bartman on steroids. I think where those two Yankee fans got in trouble is when they physically grabbed Mookie Betts. Having said that, it's always been my understanding that on a foul ball, in other words, a ball that is out of the field of play, the fan has as much right to it as the fielder does. This took place in Game 4 of the World Series. Congratulations, I think, at Ancal. She avoided the sweep.
Yeah.
Yankees found their offense. Did they find their groove too late? Well, maybe not. I mean, they got the next game at home, right? Yep. They have a chance to cut the Dodgers lead to 3-2, and then it goes back to Los Angeles.
Do you want to follow this after the next pause? Because we need one more before Mace.
Oh, we did. We went long. That's my bad. Yeah, you're right. We did. Let's do that, and then we'll have a chance to get into a little more depth on this subject because I do think it represents a larger issue, and then we will prepare for the elephant in the room. I mean, it's like an elephant stampede when one elephant stampede when Glenn Mason enters the building. Who was the outfielder? Was it Mookie Blaylock or Mookie Betts?
Last night?
Yeah, last night.
That would have been Mookie Betts.
Remember Mookie Blaylock?
Of course I do. I had his baseball cards.
You did?
Yeah.
I thought he was a basketball player.
Was he?
Yeah. Mookie Blaylock. Yeah, that's the guy I'm thinking of.
Who's the Mookie I'm thinking of?
I'm thinking of point guard. You're thinking of Mookie Wilson?
Maybe Mookie Wilson.
Yeah, Mookie. Yeah.
I'm getting my Mookies
There's
confused.
a lot of Mookie. It's a great nickname. It's an outstanding nickname. So here's what struck me about when we read a text from somebody saying, well, if you're in the stands, you have a right to the ball. And the ball was, I think, more in the stands than it was on the Bartman night, that fateful night involving the Chicago Cubs many, many years ago. But I've heard some people go even further and say, yeah, that Those two guys are I know they're going to get thrown out and they're going to get banned, but those guys are my hero. They are heroes because, that's that New York mentality. Here's how I view it, in all seriousness. I view it as a symptom of the sick times we live in when it comes to social media. I honestly believe part of what contributes to an idiot doing what that idiot did, which was more than I'm trying to reach for the ball, I'm going to try to steal his glove or take the glove away, whatever that was.
And then the Rube next to him's grabbing his arm.
Yeah, exactly.
It was ridiculous.
That, to me, is under the classification of you think you're part of the team. You think you're now part of the story because in 2024, everybody's part of the story. And everybody can go viral and everybody can be on social media. And I'm part of the team. You're not part of the team. You have nothing to do with the team. You've had no impact on whatever the New York Yankees have done this season. But I'm not surprised that you can't get over yourself because we show this stuff over and over in a way that fans are, I did my job. So I did try to do my job. And grabbing the glove of a player is not doing part of your job. He shouldn't be arrested. I'm not asking that he be tased, but I'm saying I have no patience for it, and I have less patience for the notion of feisty. Man, these New York fans, they're feisty. When Philadelphia, they'd have gone one step further. They just sliced his wrist off.
They may have.
And they might have, actually.
And face no consequences.
I can't countenance any of that attitude, but I'm not surprised because I think that's what has been fueled by the social media era, all the videos we see that fans start thinking, I'm part of this thing.
Right. I know that the texter talked about fans have a right to the ball if it's coming kind of in their area. I would say in the World Series or the playoffs or just in general, but certainly in these high pressure scenarios, you have no right to the ball. If it looks like it's close, just let it drop and see if the guy can catch it. I know the audience here with you and Mace, you guys aren't going to understand this, but in the middle of a plane, they have a thing called the exit row.
They do?
Yeah, it's kind of in the back.
Oh.
And the flight attendant...
They don't have that up front. I've never seen one of those.
You have the main exit, but that's just
okay.
Then it's just the chairs. So in the middle of the plane, there's a thing called the exit row where some of us are lucky enough to sit in every once in a while.
So where the peasants sit.
Kind of, yes. And the flight attendant comes by before every flight and needs your attention and says, I need to make sure you're able to assist us if we have an emergency. Here's what you need to read. Do we need to start doing that in the first couple of rows of ballparks?
Maybe we do.
Or first couple of rows in football stadiums or on the court to say, you can sit here and these are nice seats and they're more comfortable maybe than some others, but that we have some rules and regulations and you can't grab a player's glove and then Rube Buddy next to him. You can't grab the player's arm. You just have to leave the players alone. It shouldn't be that complicated.
No, and again, if you want to give them the opportunity to say, well, I'm going to try to get to the ball, they went well beyond that in this case. Literally, I mean, this is new, right? This is a new level of stupidity.
This is way worse than
I don't even call it stupidity because I think it was purposeful. I think it was all really, I don't think there was any, I kind of get caught up in the moment. No, you thought you were going to be a star. You thought you were going to get patted on the back. And by the way, they still called it an out, didn't they?
Yes, immediately.
Immediately.
Yeah.
The idea that you're going to take his glove and do it's just who are you?
Pure stupidity.
Oh my God. I would have no difficulty. I think the two involved here have been banned from Game 5. I think they should be banned forever. I do. I'm being totally serious. We don't have time for this. We really don't. We got somebody else who's sitting in those seats. We don't care how loyal you've been. You're acting like a jackass. There's nothing cool about this. There's nothing fiercely loyal about this. There's a line that exists between the competitors, the individuals who are ultimately determining this thing, and fans who are there to watch. And if they want to cheer on their team, they're in New York, boo their team, which I'm sure there was plenty of that before the Yankees started knocking the ball around. And that's the end of the story. Now, I like to think that even in 2024, that couldn't happen here. That we're still too civilized compared to New York for that to even be a possibility. Am I actually giving us too much credit?
Yeah, and it's such a hypothetical to think about the Twins in the World Series at this point. I don't know how any of us... It's hypothetical to think how any of us would react, don't you think?
That's true. It might change you. Yeah, you might be.
Those are uncharted territory and waters.
Hypnotized just a bit.
We might be.
Well, Joe Polat will never know. That is, if we get an owner. Do we have anything going?
I haven't heard.
Is Cambria guy going to do it? That's the recurring rumor is him, right?
It'd be great.
But is it really going to happen?
I don't know. I can't get much traction with Cambria.
Is Gleeman covering?
I have the countertops.
Is Gleeman on this story? Or is he bored with it?
Oh, I'm sure he's all over it.
After basically running the Polads out of town?
He had a lot to do with it. Yep. He had a lot to do with it, setting the temperature and the tone.
Think about it. Think about that. Kessler will join us in studio at about 5:30. The Fan has learned it's Election Day coming up this Tuesday, right? So a week from this past Tuesday.
Week from yesterday.
Yeah, that's it. I keep thinking this is Thursday. This is Wednesday. So he'll be at 5:30. And we'll chat with Glenn Mason, who is back in studio for the first time in a while. He's been kind of, if you've been listening to this show, traveling the country. He's now back. There's much to get into regarding college football and perhaps a couple of other stories. Is it cruel for me to bring up his Hail Mary experience as the Gopher coach against Northwestern? It is, but I still think I should.
Yeah, you see how I didn't even answer it? I think it's cruel, but not, as Mace would say, but not surprising.